All right, we're now recording. Hello, everyone. Noreen here. Today I have with Maria. Maria, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Maria, let's start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, yeah, it's let's get started with, I guess, hospitality. And as a teenager, I was posed with the question, what do you want to do? What university do you want to go? What do you want to study? And for some reason, my choice was I want to work with people. And for some reason, that only presentation was restaurants and sort of service kind of jobs. And I also wanted to travel. I wanted to explore the world. So I went for a hospitality tourism degree. Seems like the only viable option for some reason. And yeah, that's kind of how I ended up. I had my first job at an amusement park. I did all kinds of food frying. I fried varieties of foods. Some burgers, some chips, some fish and chips, all kinds of things. And yeah, and then once I graduated, I've had about 4 or 5 years of restaurant experience behind me, but I also realized that's not what I wanted to do. Long term, I loved it, but I also wanted to know what else there was because there really was so much. And in my tourism studies, I was just amazed at destination management and how the big picture stuff really impacts the little stuff, and whether you're able to open your independent restaurant or not depends on someone 5 years ago decided that this particular part of the city was going to be part of their destination development and things like that. But as a graduate, applied for all kinds of jobs everywhere, was kind of just interested in pretty much anything. I wanted to explore, develop, get new experiences. And somehow, I luckily ended up at the corporate office of IHG. And I think I got my second degree in bachelor's hospitality in the first few months because I just so much I learned, so much about how the industry works, what we really do on a day-to-day basis, and especially the corporate side. It's not one that they tell you much about, at least not in my school. They didn't tell us too much about the corporate side. I don't think I really understood what that means. I probably thought it was like lawyers, HR people, and things like that. But actually, there's so much more. Fell in love with it. It was really, really, really amazing experience. And that was an internship. So once that internship ended, I scored a job in another team and entered the world of brand management and luxury hospitality. And that was the beginning of it all in many ways, because I just realized, wow, this is really, really cool. This is guest experience, but not the direct side of it. This is still conceptualizing and thinking about it on a global scale, on a regional scale. It's not just that one particular moment with that particular guest. So that was really, really cool. And yeah, I learned a lot there and really found my niche in some ways, I'd like to think, and also had a role in loyalty as well. As a last role at IHG, I moved to the loyalty team, which was a huge surprise because of the expectations versus reality was very interesting, because it's very technical and much more than I had anticipated in terms of the capabilities of the loyalty tools to deliver the experience on property or not, coming up with the best ways to create those experiences. We're limited with what we can do. So yeah, there's a whole fantastic learning experience there. And yeah, it's 5-ish years at IHG after graduation. It was fantastic. I learned so much. It was incredible. It was one of the luckiest things that ever happened to me is getting that job and moving to London. Yeah, that was really cool.
And did you travel around after that, or did you stay in London? So we're doing this from the UK now, right?
Yes, I'm in London. No, it was coronavirus last year. I couldn't really travel anywhere, but I do intend to obviously want to move somewhere else, maybe live somewhere else at some point. A bit of kind of like slow travel concept that really, really appeals to me. But yeah, we'll see in the future. I did manage to travel a little bit with work, and obviously took all my opportunities to go on holiday while I could before that, which is really good. Yeah, and I managed to I wanted to get paid to travel, which
Yeah.
at that time I said it out loud in a class and people laughed. I'm like, I'm serious. I think they didn't take me seriously because it was kind of like perceived as you're going to be a travel blogger and get paid to travel as a travel blogger, which is, you know, one of the ways to do it. But now there are many more ways to get paid to travel than that. And I did go for really, really cool business trips. But one thing I'll say, business trips are not what they seem on Instagram.
Well, is anything you see on Instagram really true?
It's so true. Yeah, but really good fun though. Really good.
And so you did the 5 years at IHG. So what are you doing now?
Right now, I'm freelancing and sort of as a brand manager in hospitality, or with obviously the guest experience angle to it, because that's really what I love doing, is thinking about that guest journey, the touch points, and thinking about how we can make that a better experience overall, whether there's one business or several sort of locations under the same brand. But as a brand manager, there's just so many back-end things that we don't think about that come on.
Hey.
That I found really fascinating. It's not marketing, it's often part of marketing if it's on property, but actually it's very much the behind the scenes of things, like what do we stand for, what is the guest experience we want to create before we even get to looking at the touch points and things. And yeah, that's what I do.
And that's a really interesting point that you mentioned, that because in my role at STR, it's also marketing a bit, and branding is just a part of it as well, but also it's also the foundation in many ways. So if you're trying to, you know, explain to somebody, you know, what is branding and what are you trying to identify with that, which actually identify is probably a good word, is how would you explain that to somebody? What is branding? Is it just the colors and the logos?
Absolutely not, but it's a really good point. Brand, what is a brand is essentially the question, right? Is what do we stand for? What do we want to be perceived as? Because what we think we are doesn't really matter, because what really matters is what does the customer, the guest think we are, and how do we deliver that message? Do we want to make sure we have, say, we take a typical luxury hotel versus Citizen M? They don't have that front desk check-in experience. That is because of who they are and what they stand for as a brand, and what are the things that they've created that are unique to them. Visual identity obviously is an important part of it, but so is the physical space of the hotel. What's that going to look like? What are the where's the lift? Is it easy to find? Is it not easy to find? Can you walk out of the front desk, or is it locked? That all kind of sends out unconscious messages to the guests and things like that. But really the brand is kind of, if you put it on a map of, you know, like an X of luxury boutique, where does it stand against competitors, but also how is it unique? And that really comes down to what problem are you solving, how are you different, and making sure that you incorporate that in every stage of the journey, not just copy pasting something else that's the neighbor has, for example.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I mean, with the branding, it is not just, you know, the name, it's the identity, but also the space. You know, you have to, everything kind of ties back into that, or like you were saying, you know, the Citizen M's versus the luxury and all of that. Do you feel that there are too many brands out there? And this is like, I'm now asking the questions just because I'm curious. So
that is $1 million question. I think no. I think many brands are very local and very specific to that particular group of people, for that particular sort of local niche or regional niche. For example, in US, there are a lot of local brands that we probably don't even know about here in Europe or the other parts of the world. And likewise, in Asia, there are lots of brands that are specific to that country or that region. So in a sense, no, but in a sense, it can be very confusing as a customer when there are so many things, brands to choose from. You don't even know the difference sometimes. Like, what's the difference between Hilton and Crown Plaza? What's the difference between W and Intercontinental? We have a new guest in the interview here. um, and that is where the brand comes in, really. That is delivering that message, but also delivering that on site. Like when you wake up in your room as a business traveler, and you, especially if you're like a road warrior, you probably wake up and you don't know where you are until you check some Google Maps or some sort of visual cue in the hotel room. But if you've got that brand everywhere, sort of subtly telling you this is not another copy-paste hotel, and I'm like, oh, actually I remember where I am, because it's a different location. And that's why boutique hotels and design hotels are so big, because they have that uniqueness to them. They're individually designed, and they really convey that local culture and atmosphere.
Yeah, it was interesting. My grandmother used to tell me, like, when she would go to the shop when she was younger, she, you just buy one soap, one flour, one bread, one egg, like there was no such thing as having variety. And now, you look nearly, she's not yet 100, but, she's getting actually pretty close to it. You have just so many different options, to choose from. And I think branding and identity has really been developed over the last century or so. And you see it more and more in every place that you go. And nowadays you start talking about personal branding as well, right? Who are you as an individual? What are you trying to sell? What are you trying to portray? Who are you, who is your audience as well? Or what is your identity in other words as well?
Absolutely. And also one of the things that is certainly becoming bigger now is the sustainability of that particular hotel and the brand, and whether it's just for the sake of it, it's a PR stunt, or it's actually a business that has looked at all the different elements of where they can contribute and make themselves better. Or some brands that just have it as part of their identity as a whole. It's the core element. We want to be a hotel that is the most sustainable hotel in the world, say. Big statement, but that's an inspiring statement to work towards, for example. And yeah, especially in the luxury space, there's a lot of differentiation that is very subtle, and people look for the sort of specific subtle differentiations. I think mid-scale budget is slightly different in that sense, because people are more price conscious, but in the luxury space it's very much, well, I don't care if it's 1 or 20,000 per night, as long as it follows these particular criteria that I'm looking for in service, in standards and stuff like that.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that as well. One of the women I had interviewed a couple of weeks ago, Crystal, she has the Slate Hotel in Phuket, and she really revamped their entire family hotel, and they built it on their tin mining family business. That was their heritage. Now the tin mining is gone, but she's basically taken all those concepts and built it into the brand, and has told a story as a result of that. And it's made it extremely unique property, unlike your typical beach hotel at a beach resort destination, and it's just, you could really make that connection with her. And then that was also one of the questions I said, you're doing something that was different. How do you know you were going to get the right audience for it? And she's like, they find you. The right customer will find you for what they're looking for and what you're selling to them. So I think if I were to answer that question, are there too many brands? I would also agree it's no, because I think not only are you have a different identity, you're also meeting the needs of different people, right? There are some people who love the citizen concept, and that's those who don't. And that's why there needs to be a space for everyone. Yeah, that's why people are unique and individual as well, right?
There is a lot of individuality that we are embracing and accepting now. That's why there are so many brands, and that's why there probably will be even more brands out there, because there's so many groups and niches of people and travelers, and whether that's your local, maybe locally you stay with Malmaison, but actually when you go to France you stay with completely different type of hotel, because you want to experience something else. So yeah.
And so why do you like this topic so much? It was just because that was the first experience that you had when you came into IHG, or was this something that you always knew that you liked?
I think I just discovered it as something that was, wow, that is super interesting. My career wasn't a super planned career. It was more like, okay, it's a great opportunity. I'm going to take it. I'm going to look for the next opportunity. I knew when my internship was ending, I needed to find something. There were a couple of options and things like that. And once this one came on, I was like, oh my God, these people do this. This is fantastic. I want to do that. And yes, so on progressed from there. Once I saw more opportunities, and when I wanted to move to the next step, I talked to people and kind of progressed that. But this is so interesting because it encompasses so many things. I think for me, it's the guest experience, the one-on-ones with the guests, obviously delivered by someone professional, not myself, and thinking of the bigger picture. Like you can't just think of me, okay, I'm a hotel, I want to be this hotel, that's it. Yeah, you're a box, but you're also a box in another box, in another city, in a bigger area. You have to think about yourself as an ecosystem of suppliers. You have to think about yourself within that city, how you work with your neighbors, your tourism boards, and things like that. So it's very, very complicated, and there's just so much to do, I guess, but also the opportunity to be creative is incredible. Like it's not just about making sure the photo shoot is right and being creative in that sense, or the video is done to brand, but also, okay, how can we make this guest experience better? What are the ways? What are the new ways we can do it other than just copy pasting or increasing the standards from, I don't know, 250 thread to 350 thread bed sheets? Like that's not really creative. It's like, what is there something else we can do? I think it's just fascinating, and the variety of ways to approach it. If you look at the three big brands, the IHGs, Hilton, and Marriott's of the world, or if you look at independents or smaller groups and things across the world, there's just so many ways to do that, which is deliver accommodation to our guests. I think it's never endless creativity.
And I think also, like you're saying, that destination plays such a big part. The example that I just used, the hotel in Phuket, it was very much, that location, a tin mining, that's what they had physically in that location, and then working together, with the local community. And I think we're starting to see that a lot more of that, right? Because of the whole focus on sustainability, focusing on the local community, will start to have a great influence. And I think also for years and generations, whoever is the owner of the property will have a big influence on the brand as well, whether it's something that you build ground up or it's what they select and what they then connect with.
Yeah, and a lot of owners have to make a trade-off whether they go for a big brand that is easy to implement, or they go with something that they may have to spend more money and investment in upfront, and then it will be a very different result. They may result in different type of revenue. I don't know if it's more or less, it depends. And yeah, that's a big trade-off to make. If you have a location and you're interested in global reach quickly, well, yeah, then you signed a big brand. But then if you're interested in doing something unique, then you've got to look at what are the options and what kind of unique you're looking for.
Absolutely. Now, in addition to doing your freelancing and brand management for hospitality, you also are the founder of the Savvy Hotelier. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's a hobby, I would say, but yeah, I call it a funder. But it's something that I created because I realized after a few years of graduation that there's just so much I learned in the last few years working in the corporate office about how the industry works and what are the career opportunities and what really you can do with this degree, or what kind of opportunities you've got on the next step and things like that. I know there are lots of students in the industry who just no clue how to pursue this, and it's what I want to share, just a little knowledge in my head with others that may be interested, who are looking for their career opportunities, because I feel like students often perceive that they have a particular path or one of three or one of five to pick and follow, while we know that careers are not linear. We know that careers don't work like that necessarily, unless you're super focused and that is exactly what you want, then fantastic. But if you're not really sure, if you're kind of just exploring, then there are so many ways to go about it. And showing those opportunities, I think, is what I wanted to do as an idea. came about it in various different ways. It was last year I shared a lot around resume writing, because I find that it's challenging to write about your waitressing experience in a way that is, rather than in a way that's like value driven, because you're, well, I'm a waitress, and actually, no, wait, hold on, you're doing all of these things. This is how you talk about it, because resume writing has really leveled up in the last few years. It wasn't it was the resume that got me my job at ISG was not like they wanted this year. So it's very kind of different world. You've got to understand how to write about those experiences, but also you've got to learn how to lead yourself. And it's a lesson I learned throughout that time as well, is as much as your managers and your directors, they want to help you, if you don't want to be helped, they can't do anything. If you're not going there asking them, can I have this? Can I have that? Can you tell me more about this? Or can I meet with this person? Then they're not going to necessarily come and present you with opportunities. You've got to lead yourself. You've got to be in charge of it. And that's one of my biggest learnings, and something I really want to convey with Savvy Hotelier, because I think it obviously comes from lots of my experience, but one of the reasons I did group panel earlier this year for Hoteliers, because I can only share, but one person, another person, a professional in a specific field, shares their story and kind of conveys that, yeah, of course, yeah, I was a chef, but now I'm this. Yes, you can make this giant leap as well, and this is how you can do it. That is more valuable to me telling other people's stories. So yeah, that's just, I think, I just want to share a little bit more and help inspire the students who probably feel a bit stuck this year or last year about what they can do in the hospitality industry. And there really is a lot of opportunity.
Yeah. And I think particularly at a time like this, in COVID, there aren't that many opportunities, right? Because they're just either hotels are closed or they're just not taking on new staff, although there's like a serious staff shortage within the industry around the world. So it's, again, a good time. But I just, to be honest, when I was first graduating, however many years ago that was now, I wish I had some support like that, because I was absolutely clueless. Like I had, 2 jobs, and I'm like, I was a waiter, or I did some chefing work or some catering work. But, there's still a lot from there that I never really, gave myself any credit for. But I think it's, it's a great reminder that, you do talk about those things. And it's interesting that how you talked about, lead yourself. It was we had almost a similar conversation with Ava, who's just the one that I just shared now. She's like, about being curious and asking questions and put yourself forward for things. And by doing that, she had this opportunity to go to Peru and present a paper with her company as well. So, and it just exposes you to different things as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, certainly. It's a really tough thing to do, because I think once you get out of university, you realize it's everyone for themselves. Because in school, up until graduation, I think, of university, things are kind of taken care of for you. You're kind of being led by other people in many ways, and that's not how it is in a working environment. People have lives, people have families, people have things to do, and even the best manager in the world who cares about their employees truly and genuinely, he still can't make you, or he or she can't make you want to develop and learn and do things. You can be the guy or girl who has the same role for 5 to 7 years, or you can be the one who gets promoted every 2 years, or get moved to a different role, or does interesting projects every 2 years or 6 months, because you get yourself out there. And it's super scary. You have to start somewhere, build yourself up with some confidence, and drive yourself forward, really is my biggest advice, I would say.
Yeah. And I think, what you're doing, or what we just talked about with branding and also looking for a job or applying for roles, matching yourself to the brand that you want to work for is also incredibly important, because if you're not going to line up with what that company values are, and it doesn't match your own values, then it doesn't matter what role you do, you're never going to be really happy with that. And that's not something that I know that I was ever taught or exposed to when I was first graduating. It was just like, go out and get a job. Because I agree with you, what you're saying, like, you know, you were just in this little bubble at university, and all of a sudden you have to go out there and find work, and you're just like, okay, I need to go get a job.
Yeah, it's a little bit like that. I mean, I was fully prepared. I even have, not by design, more by accident, but the last summer after graduation, after finishing school, I was still kind of on summer break, and I was very much aware this is like my last summer break. Because yeah, I would get a job, whichever job that is, and you know, we'll have summer breaks when we work. If we do, it's slightly different. It's more of a holiday, and yeah, it's got something you've got to learn to do yourself. And if you're still in school, if any students are obviously listening, then that start that scary thing of reaching out to people you don't know, or interviewing your professors, or asking them about their careers, or learning things, or following things, and sharing your thoughts. Start it now, because then you'll be slightly further ahead, and you don't have to kind of start from scratch everywhere.
Yeah.
You'll be a little bit more ahead in say, networking skills. You just learn your job, and then you carry on. So.
Yeah, and nowadays, you know, with LinkedIn, it's just such a great platform to use that it didn't exist when I was graduating at all. But I think, you know, how I got to know you was that panel that you talked about networking, right? And how it's important, and just there were some really interesting things that some people shared, and it was just about reaching out. And not every time someone's going to say yes to you or respond to you, but at least you're making that outreach. I mean, and just, you know, asking that question, and trying to find that connection as to why you're reaching out to them, and, you know, what is it that you're looking for, but what can you offer them as well. So just like, you know, understanding that aspect of it too.
Yeah, it's easy to reach out and say, oh, I want to work at your company, or oh, you know, tell me about yourself. But also, in a sense, don't be annoying. But also, you probably aren't annoying, because that's what my brain often tells me, like, stop asking people questions. And on the other hand, they probably don't think I'm annoying. So yeah, it's a interesting balance. But just make sure it's a genuine connection. Like, you actually just want to get to know a person, and that's how you build a true network of people that know you, that can think of you when there's something coming up, and they can recommend you forward. Because if you're just spamming and then you're just messaging random messages, yeah, they're gonna probably delete you.
Yeah, and they'll know if it's just it's the same concept that we were taught. I mean, some concepts that we were taught about CVs and letters and everything, like, don't just copy paste and just change out the name, right? The number of times I've received CVs or cover letters where they didn't even change the name of the company, I was like,
Yeah, that one, at least change the name. At least make sure that it's the correct company. But yeah, it's a tough one also with job applications, right? It's so stressful. You take so much time to put it together, especially if there's a cover letter involved, and then you don't hear anything, and you're like, why did I do this? And yeah, it's a tough one. You just have to persevere. You just got to push forward, and you will find what you're looking for. And if you kind of take a job and you realize later it's not the job for you, you can still learn something from it, right? You can get those experiences and make sure it benefits you, right? Just because it's not the right job for you, it's something to learn from. It's something to benefit from in some way. Hopefully more positive than negative. But yeah, certainly try to take it as a learning opportunity. Absolutely. It's what I try to think about when there is a tough situation. It's like, it's fine. Just gonna learn how to do this, and next time we're not gonna have a problem. So yeah.
So one of the questions I also like to ask is, you know, what have you learned about yourself? I feel like you've already answered a lot of that throughout this conversation, because one, you've realized that, you know, you really are into branding, right? And that's something that you're really passionate about. Two, you've talked about, okay, taking the skills that I know and want to share it, right? Talking about, you know, through your Savvy Hotelier sort of channel, and talking about, you know, putting yourself forward and learning, and not to be afraid and looking for opportunities. So is there anything else you'd like to add to that question?
To that list of things. Honestly, it's what is possible, what you can do. And I always thought I never wanted to do sales. I didn't even want to upsell cheese when I was selling in restaurants. They were like, Maria, we're upselling cheese. I'm like, oh, no. I said, I can't imagine forcing anyone, or in my opinion, it was forcing, have something that they didn't actually want in the first place, or they didn't think they would. um, but actually, you can learn all of those things, and you can use that to advantage if you do it in a way that is comfortable for you. So being a freelancer, I've got to do a lot of selling. I'm going to do a lot of things that I've never wanted to do. And it's fine. I've learned it, and I can do it. And I can do it. And it was scary at first, terrified me. But now it's something I know I can do. I'm comfortable with it, and different ways to go about it. You don't have to do it like, there's different ways, so to say. Like if you're more comfortable with a particular outreach and sales method, just stick with it. If you want to try any different things, try them. If they don't work, do they work, and things like that. So honestly, just something I learned over the course of the last year and starting freelancing is you can do anything. You just have to, I guess, if there is a need, there's a way, you know.
I like that. And it's true. I think if you, really put your mind to something, you can achieve it. And what you said earlier, you learn from both the good and the bad, right? And making sure that you learn from those experiences, whatever they may end up being.
Yeah. Try to.
And what, the other thing that obviously comes back is like just being genuine and authentic and just being yourself. Because if you try and be something else that you're not, it's just going to come across as being completely unnatural, and they're just not going to connect with you.
Yeah, I think we all met a person who you look at and you're like, I'm not quite sure what's going on. Like, and you don't really always know what it is. Sometimes like, I don't think, because I've seen different behaviors in different situations. Like, why is that the case? And it's not just about adapting to the circumstances, but it's just different persons. And you're like, okay, it's the same human. But yeah, just be yourself in that way. It may not be as fast as pretending to be someone else, but it will be in your own way, in your own pace, and the way that probably works best for you.
And almost goes back to branding, because not everybody will connect with you.
Excellent. Excellent connection.
Oh man, okay, I could probably keep talking about branding clearly, but I will go on to my final question, and that is, who inspires you?
Actually, I've been thinking about this, and I don't have a person that inspires me, that I look up to, whether that's famous or not famous. Throughout sort of my career, I've met people. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. How did you get there? How did you overcome it? And there's learnings I take from people, and hopefully apply it to myself. But also, looking back at yourself a few years ago is a super interesting exercise to do, to like feel inspired, because you have come a long way. We often don't think about it because time passes and you're like, oh, I'm still in the same situation, or I haven't gotten as far. But actually think about a few years ago. Like, I graduated 6 years ago. I had no idea where I would be today. I had no idea where I'd be 2-3 years ago. I didn't even know those jobs existed. So there's actually really it's a really interesting way to look at it, and kind of, yeah, you have come. Yes, look at yourself. You can do all of these things. And I try to think about it that way, inspire myself in a way, but also look at other people that you kind of are close to you, and see overcome struggles, they've faced challenges, and they found a way. And yeah, that's my way to think about it in terms of inspiration.
I love that. You are your own inspiration, and I think that's also what I'm trying to go, expose through this channel as well. Like, a good reminder for each and every one of us is that we are so inspiring, and we should not forget that. And you go through so much in your life. You can be 10 years old and you can still have gone through a lot, and you can be 60 and you've obviously gone through a lot as well.
Absolutely.
And it's definitely, we don't spend enough time reflecting.
In a positive way. Yes. In a positive way, because it's easy to go back and thinking, oh, I should have done that, or I shouldn't have done that. thinking about the things that actually are great, and you did great. Like you learned the language, or you moved to the other country, you got the job, or actually you did a really good job on that project, or even small things like genuine, like things you can't really measure. I would say confidence in
Yeah.
speaking to people. Oh, actually, I was scared of reaching out to people 6 months ago. Now I reach out to people all the time and really comfortable with it. Small things like that you've got to recognize, and it's not easy, but you've got to think about those things to keep yourself moving forward, because then you're always developing and you'll see that you're always developing.
Absolutely. And those are wonderful words to end with. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you so much.